From the airport, let's bring in our expert panel now. Retired Brigadier General of the U.S. Air Force, Blaine Holt, also a former combat C-17 commander of the U.S. Air Force, Newsmax contributor, and also former FBI agent Jonathan Gilliam. He is a retired Navy SEAL, author of the book Sheep No More. You know, guys, obviously is a tragedy, and we are learning more about the young victims. There's even Russian nationals, coaches for skaters who were there. So, you know, while that track is moving forward and there is, you know, the recovery mission, there's questions about why this even happened. As a pilot, Blaine, I want to start with you. There's questions about whether or not this Black Hawk was at a higher elevation and what, if any, role night goggles they were wearing could have been a hindrance, not a help last night. What's your read?
Yeah, so goggles can work both ways. And my understanding is different missions call for different equipment on them. But what really bothers me is that the helicopter's altitude, and as it got closer into the Reagan approach space, it didn't jink, it didn't veer. In fact, it even moved more into the approach path of that aircraft. So there is a lot to unpack here. Don't understand this accident as a pilot whatsoever. Doesn't make any sense to me why this would happen. Clear weather. But what Alana said, while there may be some balancing issues of traffic into DCA, that is separate to this. Nothing there was nothing in Reagan ops or what the CRJ was doing that would have prevented this accident. They were doing just exactly what they were supposed to be doing.
Let's play a little bit of Sean Duffy today, who basically says this is what Americans should feel comfortable about, and get your reaction after, Jonathan.
The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected.
I wanted to play Sean Duffy, but what he says is safety is our expectation. Americans should expect when they have a destination to get there. They almost did last night. Pick up on some of the things. Obviously, Donald Trump came right out today with this, you know, news conference, staying next to Sean Duffy, Pete Hegseth. But air traffic control also came up in DEI. So we have some changes maybe with what is happening over there at the FAA. But as far as air traffic controllers, it sounds like there may have been some type of issue with communications. I don't know if it's radio frequency, but what do you think, Jonathan, could have been a potential problem last night in the air?
Well, first off, let me just say that press conference was so impressive, and I'm sure that the General will feel the same way as I do, is that when you have the Commander-in-Chief with his Secretary of Transportation, his Secretary of Defense, and the Vice President, and not only giving an incredible brief, but allowing them the opportunity to also brief and say very poignant, team-oriented things, it shows you where this administration is going and what they bring to the table versus the last one. Now, when we look at this accident that happened last night, I have not heard it, but there's reports that that you can hear the helicopter pilot talking back to ATC and affirming what they had told them. I have not heard that. So if ATC and the helicopter were able to communicate, then that takes away, I think, the responsibility from ATC and puts that on the helicopter, because the airline or the airplane that was coming in there, the American Airlines plane, that plane was cleared. It was on a priority pathway where it had the right-of-way. So that helicopter should have been either positioned at a different altitude or should have been aware of that traffic pattern. So if the air traffic control was communicating with that helicopter and telling them to be aware of this, then I think that there's something going on in the helicopter.
And it kind of echoes exactly what you were just saying, Blaine, about this, that you don't understand. Obviously, it is a tragedy, and we hope this is something we never see again over this crowded airspace. I don't know what changes you think may need to be made, Blaine, after this, or if this was just pilot error, maybe very unfortunate. Do you think with this air traffic control that they could have possibly got behind in communicating? I mean, because you would think they'd see the Black Hawk and they would see the passenger jet, no?
They got the collision avoidance on their radar. We did see that. The thing is, we'll find that out in the investigation. But what I do think is if that Black Hawk was flying in the National Capital Region and it didn't have the collision air avoidance system on board, if it didn't have a cockpit voice recorder or a black box, that's a foul that needs to be addressed by the government. But that's clear weather. I'm sorry, these pilots have special qualifications to fly in the National Capital Region. They were on a check ride at the time, so says Secretary Hegseth. And if you're a pilot, big sky theory, hey, that's an airport over there. I better not fly there, and I better not be 200 feet above my required altitude. So none of this checks out for me at all. I'm not accusing anybody of any malfeasance other than if we have an errant pilot, we've got to go into the training, we've got to go into everything to figure out how this doesn't happen again. There is a reason this did not happen ever since 9/11, and it's because of all those procedures that govern every molecule of air in our nation's capital.
They do, but you know, pilot error, human error, usually when we see these, that's what it is. It's been almost 16 years, Jonathan, since the last passenger commercial jet went down. So sadly, this record is broken, and we undoubtedly know there'll be some young people, some skaters with bright futures, and also, you know, every soul on board there that is going to be grieved today. You know, TCAS, that is something we don't know if the Black Hawk helicopter had that, the crash avoidance. What else would you be hoping to hear from the NTSB in about an hour and a half, Jonathan?
Well, the NTSB, I don't need to hear anything from them yet. I need them to figure out what's going on and give us reports as we go forward. But what I don't want to hear from the NTSB or any other investigator is excuses for why this person may have done this or done that. One problem that I have with the way that the airline industry and the way that air operations in general are done from a government standpoint is that a lot of the times they wait for an accident to happen until they figure out what needs to be fixed. And I think in the military, that's what's so surprising about this. In the military, we forward think things and we try to dirt dive them so that we eliminate any type of vulnerabilities and we have contingency plans. So it's alarming for this to have occurred. But I think the frustration that you heard from President Trump that comes into this is that the possibility that hiring across the board from maintenance to the pilots to even in the military, to the air traffic controllers, have been really injured by forcing people into positions of responsibility, not based on their talent and expertise, but based on checking a box to try to make things fair from a leftist point of view. And that, I think, if that is the case, DEI. Yes.
It has already been raised by the president today during that wide-ranging news conference. I appreciate you both. Jonathan, Blaine, thank you so much. Of course, we're tracking this story as it continues to develop this afternoon. Thank you.